The Icons of Real Estate Podcast. Are you ready to learn the proven money-making secrets from top-producing Icon agents? Ready to skyrocket your business? This podcast is for you. Tune in every week with your host, Tomasz Fonseca, and find out how to implement proven strategies to 10 times your business, from $3 million to $30 million in just 12 months. Brought to you by the Masters in Real Estate Marketing, Arter SEO.
Welcome to the #1 podcast network and to the Icons of Real Estate podcast. I'm your host, Kat Timson, and today my guest is Joel Elgee. He's a top-performing realtor and managing broker based in both Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and Spokane, Washington. Joel has over 2 decades of experience in the industry, and his experience covers everything from commercial to residential, including waterfront properties. Thanks so much for joining me, Joel. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, I like to start with finding out how people got into the world of real estate because it's usually a good story. What's yours?
Mine was kind of just an interest as a young person, probably started in maybe even middle school or high school with owning real estate as an investment. It, for whatever reason, it kind of clicked with me, and so I had an interest there. And then during late high school and college, I was a valet at the Coeur d'Alene Resort, so parking cars. And one of the people I parked the car of was a broker who had a big market share in the Coeur d'Alene area. And so we happened to be going, or he was alumni from a rival school in Washington, the Cougars, and I was at that time and graduated from the University of Washington Huskies. And so we had good banter and built a relationship. And then over time, I had expressed my interest in real estate, and he said, "Oh, give me a call." So it kind of took it from more of a passive thought that I'd have another job and try to invest in real estate to maybe working in real estate. And then when I graduated, I decided I want to come back from Seattle and gave him a call, and it took several months to connect all the dots, but then I went to work as a new construction salesperson for a local builder that he was affiliated with.
Wow. And then you never looked back, it sounds like.
Yeah, not too much. I've been there since. So yeah, I didn't look back. Certainly reflective, but yeah, no, I've been on that track since. So I sold exclusively for that builder for 3 years and then went independent in about 2006. And then, been doing our thing ever since then. I was with that broker for 18 years, and then we started our own brokerage 3 years ago.
Oh, wow. How's that going? What do you like about that?
It's neat to be able to kind of take the things that I've seen that, and I have 2 co-owners of the company, both with, really, just wonderful people, but also really great, strong real estate operators, but pulling the best of what we've seen in the industry. We didn't do it quickly. It was, 18 years with a big franchise brokerage, and then pulling the things we saw that were best from that, and yet then seeing where the weakness was and trying to be nimble enough to make those weaknesses strengths, and then having that be the foundation of our brokerage. So, tools that we found successful over the years, we provide, openly to all of our agents, and yet we have an actual CAP model and some things that some of these larger companies haven't or don't offer.
That's amazing. So what do you think some of the things are that work the best that you've been able to take from the experience that you had with another brokerage now that you're a boutique brokerage?
I just think it's kind of the old school fundamentals, probably, that there's a lot of, I call them gimmicks, and that's not to put them down, but there's a lot of things that people do in order to drum up business, or if it's a brokerage side of things, to create this recruiting network of other agents to make money on their things, and those sorts of things. And so I think that what I gleaned is, it's the relationships, it's doing the activities, it's setting. We've just had some neat, fun things, like, we're big on business planning, and then instead of just, putting numbers on a page, drummed it down to what we call a recipe, so if your business plan is a cake, how are you going to bake the cake? So then, what are the activities? And then, thankfully we weren't a year or two into our own adventure into real estate when we started this. And so we have these proven activities that have sustained some really high production that thankfully we've been able to do as owners. And then that becomes part of the ingredient tools for the recipe that each of our agents are able to execute. So some of those come from things we learned, not necessarily were done by the old brokerage, but things we learned there, and some are new, and yeah.
Well, I'm always curious, what are some of the things that you're finding are the most successful to help you grow? Because everybody has a different marketing attitude. Some people
Mhm.
are spending a lot of money on outside marketing. Some people, as you said, have tasks that are sort of consistent with the industry. What do you like to use to build your business?
What I've described to people is it's kind of like a stool. And so I've talked to a lot of people, and especially, folks that are looking for, I got to make sure that I can make it in this business. Well, then they'll look at some outside sources. I buy leads, or I'm a pay-per-click, or and some of those, and they're great. And I encourage people to continue that and grow that portion of their business. But you don't want to be a one-legged stool, because, I've seen people, it was, oh, I'm big on Zillow leads. And then Zillow went to a flex program, and their lead source can go, to almost nothing. So I don't think you want to be overly reliant on one specific category. But when you look at you know, the tried and true methods of successful people who have had longevity in this business, it's referral business. It's, building your sphere of influence, keeping in contact with them. Some of these things that just don't sound, all that sexy, but it's amazing how many agents I meet with that are in the business and have been for a number of years, that they haven't been taught the first thing about that basis of their business. So they're, came from a team, and it was a cold calling situation, and okay, I'm going to go out on my own, but this is what I know. And they continue to do that. Or again, these, PPC things. And I think those are awesome, but I think they should be, one leg of the stool, or maybe a supplement to some of those, stronger foundational pieces, like the relationship building. So then it's, how do you do that? Well, down to the details, how can you provide an excellent level of service, treat people, as if you're them, and then that leaves that lasting impression that will build that referral network. But then you got to stay in touch with them, so you have a great experience. And then what methods do you do that? Make sure you're in the right place at the right time. Can you do that through sending a bunch of junk email? Usually not, but a mix of some mailing and some social media, and then old school, reaching out and making sure that they're hearing from you.
That's amazing. So I guess I'm curious because you've done it long enough. What are some of the favorite things that you like to use? Like, where's your strength in all of this? And then for newer agents, after you tell us what you do, what do you like to suggest newer agents start with?
For me, it's really, staying in touch and trying to build, what I tell people is, you want people that and you may not know them now if you're a newer agent. That's the thing, is like, let's try to get you to know more people, and again, that's why, well, I'm new to town. I don't have a bunch of people, no problem, and again, you can do some of that with lead stuff, but also just go out and meet people. Most people in sales and real estate, they have the type of personality. It doesn't mean you've got to be the most outgoing person ever, but they have an ability to build rapport with people. So go out and do open houses for other agents. We get calls all the time from other brokerages that want to set our listings, for open houses and that. So I
Sure.
think that's something, another agent can go and do. But for me, uh, it's really, you're trying to create a situation where when they think of real estate, they think, this is my real estate person. So things I do are built around that. So it's staying in touch with your sphere of influence. It's, in the last several years, it's also reaching out to them on levels that aren't all, hey, send me business, or call me when you need me. So we rent out movie theaters, and we invite, and I've got 800 and some people in my sphere. So you send 800, but it's like, oh my gosh, I could go broke if all those people took me up on it. Well, we've done it long enough to know that we have, a little less than a 10% rate of confirmation on someone actually taking us up on that. So our RSVP rate of under 10%. So you go send 800 people an invitation to buy them and their family. I've had people, 11 tickets, like, oh my gosh, you're dropping
Wow.
$150 on that family. Well, they also bought a lake house, and they pass your name along. And so, you willing to invest in people, building your network, closing that network in tight so that there's not, room for, especially in the last few years, if agents, went through the, 2020 through, the end of 22. A lot of agents felt like that was the most unbelievable market conditions ever. Well, they were also amidst the most competition ever. There were so many agents in the marketplace and so limited inventory that I had great senior agents that would say, I've never worked harder and made less money. So you want to build that now. Now those same people are getting calls from the people because, you know, um, that client that used the guy that had his license but was working with them said, "Oh no, now the market conditions are different. I'm really seeking my professional again." So some of that comes full circle, but you want to close your network, and meaning that there's no real room for someone else to even get in their mindset. So if they have a real estate question, they're going to call you. And how do you do that? Again, it's not always about getting in front of them and sending hey, please list with me when you're ready. But some of that is evidence of your success. Hey, here's what we did last year. If you are new to the business, here's what our brokerage did. You can brag about other things. So, yeah, closing that network and how do you do it is, again, consistently being in front of those people. We do it mainly through mailing. And it's a mix of mailers. We've got templates and everything else, but it's your occasionally, we'll send out a just sold, just listed on a unique listing to all of our sphere, but then it's, end of the year. Thank you for your support. Here's what we did last year. It's market information. And then it's, we invite them to, again, 2 or 3 different events, usually 3 different events through the year. And those are kind of unrelated to real estate other than, hey, thank you for your support and we're doing something for you. And again, I think that's what really helps to build the network. And that's the foundation. When you look at, my last, whatever, 100 closings, you're going to, find that, about 80% of them are sphere of influence based, repeat referral clients, that type of thing.
Yeah, thank you. Drop the mic on that because that was basically a master class on what a relationship is for real estate. I always feel people will always say that real estate is a relationship business, but people don't necessarily know what that means and they don't know the results of that. I heard you say something about 100 deals. Was that just in the last year? Can you tell us about how things are going and what maybe
Yeah.
some of the highlights have been
So
for
yeah,
you?
last year we sold 81 properties. That's myself and one buyer's agent and a full-time admin person.
Oh,
For the last 10 years, I think we've averaged just over 100 sales a year. Um,
fantastic.
so yeah.
Yeah, and I know you had a couple of wins this year. Would you like to share them with us?
Yeah, some neat experiences. Yeah, we had both were kind of long in the making. One was a hotel sale that a great client, again, and kind of, built that trust on a lakefront property on Lake Coeur d'Alene, and then they were looking for a commercial building, which was actually a hotel for the company that he's the president of. And so having that, again, building the trust and relationship with that gentleman. And then when it was time for the company to look for a hotel, and I had, commercial experience, he came back to me and we searched for a couple years to find the right thing. And so yeah, we ended up closing on a pretty big hotel deal here locally last year.
Nice.
And then yeah, we had another one that worked on for about 4 years that ended up being the most expensive sale in our in Spokane County ever at 8 point, over 8.4 million. So that was
Congratulations.
a couple of neat, unique opportunities, and 22 years into it, or in March it'll be 22 years. It's neat, it shows you that there's always ever changing and something different.
Yeah, and the fact that if you are looking at this as a short-term business, you don't succeed, right? The way you're explaining it is you've got to have those relationships and you've got to bank on them for a long time. And I think there are a lot of people across the world who think that real estate agents make a lot of money right off the bat, and they don't realize how much goes into it to develop the relationship over time. So thank you so much for reiterating that because I think a lot of people don't understand. But I also wanted to note, you said lakefront houses. That's very different from, let's say, where I am is New Jersey. We do have a lot of lakefront homes, but that's not necessarily the main part of where I am, for example, because I'm closer to a city. What kind of challenges go into homes that either are near something that's a climate issue or that may be a second home?
I think I've like to say that one of the fun things about waterfront property is that it's our little bit of New York City, meaning that every foot is just so valuable
Mm,
that, and it's relatively kind of almost always, well, it's always been that way since in my career. Back in the day, there's lots of stories from my grandpa used to, say in the 60s and 70s, oh, could have bought 10 acres on the water for $10,000. Should have done it,
yeah, shoulda, woulda.
But ever since my career, it's always been, considerably more expensive on a price per foot basis of the land. And so it just creates a stronger intensity and a little more, pressure on that situation. And for us, it's a lot about, well, do you have a legal septic? Could you fit in a new legal septic if something was to fail? Or is your dream exactly what's sitting there? Are you trying to build onto it? Then how can we make sure you can build onto it? And, is your dock permitted? And where's your water coming from? And is it from the lake? And do you have a water right? And, is it a filtration system? And should you have your own well? And, easement things because, you're taking this windy road back into, a lake house or a lake cabin. So those are some of the unique fun things, but it makes you feel like, okay, you need to have your ducks in a row a little bit more to be someone's guide through that process. So I love selling homes, love selling commercial. I mean, all of them have their uniqueness. The waterfront probably just has its own uniqueness in that, if somebody hasn't had that experience or exposure to it from an agent standpoint, sometimes they just don't know what to look into, and there's nothing wrong with that. Hopefully, an agent like that would just ask around to make sure that.
Hmm.
But you don't always see that, so you see
Yeah.
people that bought something and someone was excited to sell it to them, but a few of the I's could have been, dotting the I's may have been missed, and sometimes those can have some big repercussions.
Yeah, it's so important to have somebody who's a specialist in what the area is that you're looking at and also what kind of home you're looking for. Because you're right, there are so many things you have to check off, whether it's a waterfront property or something completely different. Commercials, of course, different. So yeah, I can understand that completely. And I always like to ask the people who have been doing the job for a while and a couple decades definitely counts. What do you think is the most different about the industry, not necessarily the market, but the industry since you began?
Probably teams,
Hmm.
probably the real estate industry, yeah, not the market, because yeah, that we've seen lots of movement there, but excuse me, probably, when we first started, there wasn't really, such thing, so a few people had an assistant type of a person, but teams were
Yeah.
um, a big evolution in the business. And I think that, um, to me, it's kind of like many things, it can be a great fit and work really well, or it can not be and be a big, kind of a mess in a zoo. And usually that's ended up in that, the balance and the moderation, meaning that, when you get these mega teams that, are formed, and an agent gets in and they're just, only out there recruiting other agents, and, then you're calling that team trying to get a hold of information. It's like, somewhere there needs to be the focus on getting the property sold, which is the goal of the clients that they're trying to serve.
Yeah.
Again, so there's pros and cons to that, but there can also be the comparative advantage. Hey, I'm a specialist, I focus on this, I'm going to go out there and do that again. I don't need to worry about the back end and the administrative side because I have that support, and I don't need to worry about this and that. So that's probably the biggest change I've seen, is that teams were non-existent, and now I don't know what the percentage is of people in real estate in America
Mhm.
that are on teams, but it's huge. So
Yeah.
if you figure that, it was 0%, and now it's, maybe 40% or more, in the evolution of my career, like that's a pretty big thing when you're looking around your colleagues and peers in the industry. Anyway, just have seen that evolution.
Absolutely. Yeah. And not all teams are created equal, and you want to make sure that people are focusing on the client, not getting the client doesn't get lost. Thank you for noting that because that can
Yeah.
happen for sure. And then, so actually, Joel, you've done really well, clearly, and you're growing and you're continuing to grow. What's the next step for you in your world of real estate? What do you want to
Well,
see for even 2025?
I mean, we love serving clients, it's the goal. So I've never really set goals on like volume, but I have on units, because I love to, get people's real estate goals met. That's a fun, very satisfying thing. And so we're,
Yeah.
wanting to crank up a little bit. We did have, again, some larger transactions last year, but looking to get back over, 100 units, this coming year. And then also growing the brokerage, and continuing to build our, brokerage community, and strengthen the relationships and make new relationships with new agents. Those are probably two uh, of the big things. And then some of it is, we're building a new office building and,
Oh, that's
potentially
exciting.
looking through for some other space because we have offices in both states. Yeah, that's probably some of the things I, look forward to and kind of have on the radar.
That's amazing. Growth physically is outstanding and can be a challenge for some people. So congratulations on that. Hey, if you had one tip for people who are looking for an agent, and you're hoping they'd find you, but your one tip for clients looking to work with an agent, what might it be? What could they look for?
I have talked to people about this all the time. First you have to build some sort of trust,
Mm,
and if you know someone, that's why, Kat, you're an agent, I'm an agent. It's like that's why I say, the legs on the stool. Like if somebody already has a strong relationship with an agent, that trust is built and you're not
yeah.
going to get in there. So trying to make your entire business about trying to find people that don't have those relationships, that can work for people, but in my opinion, you also want that group of people that aren't a candidate for an outside agent to come in and get in and make that relationship new with your client. And so my one thing is finding somebody you can trust from a client's perspective. And if you don't know somebody and don't have the relationship with them, then that's where people do love looking at reviews. So as an agent, like make sure you're out there. I tell our agents, like, you're not trying to become the most reviewed agent, in our state, but it's part of your resume now. So people are going to Google you even when their friend tells you, oh yeah, you should call this person. And if they're not seeing anything there, then that's, sometimes to the detriment of your resume. So look for someone you can trust. Then once you've established that you have a reason you feel like you can trust them, then whose marketing plan is going to do the best job of exposing your property to the most possible people? Second step. Third step is kind of back to trust, but who would you want negotiating on your behalf?
Mm,
Because that's what somebody is going to be doing once they get, the property they marketed and you get an offer. Now they're turning into your, negotiating representative. And so who would you trust to do that? So I think when someone qualifies someone as a home seller or a home buyer, when you can run through those three hurdles and feel really good about somebody, you've probably found your person. And it's probably, the next time you won't be looking for somebody, because if you find the right person, then they'll become your person.
yeah. Yeah. It is. It becomes a team effort and a team that you hope both sides will stick with, but it's up to the agent, obviously, to follow up and make sure that that part of the team is supporting the other half all the way from their initial purchase all the way through whatever life changes brings them in real estate, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if people would like to be in touch with you, Joel, what is the best way for them to find you, whether they're agents or whether
Mhm.
they're potential clients?
Um, I've got a website, but I'm kind of old school. My phone number's published everywhere, so just give me a call. People,
Great.
text, call, that sort of thing. But, I'm on the phone all the time. Just, interacting with people and, talking through situations in real estate. It's hard. There's a lot of intricacies. So trying to send someone an email or a text, which both of which we do, but a lot of times it takes talking through that and scenarios
Yeah.
and some hypotheticals. But I've got my website, Joel at joellg.com, or our company site is avalon24.com, all spelled out. Or again, I can be just reached by cell phone. I've got a Idaho and Washington number, but got that on me almost all the time. So
Great. Know that it's real estate agents have like an extension of their body, which is their phone. So we will make sure that we have that in the show notes. Well, Joel, thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I really appreciate you having me and very insightful questions. So thank you.
Oh, good. I'm so glad you enjoyed it, Joel. We enjoyed having you. Hey, listen, you guys, if you liked this program, please make sure you subscribe, check us out on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. We really appreciate you tuning in. It's another great episode of the Icons of Real Estate podcast. I'm your host, Kat Timson. Thanks so much for joining us, and I'll see you soon.